Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Crypto Live League. How are you doing? My name's Ken Garofalo. We got Benton with us, Benton27. What's up, Benton? How you doing today?
Doing awesome, man. Glad to be back on the saddle. What's happening this week?
I mean, we've been, pretty consistent here, and I think the audience is starting to appreciate that. Again, today's topic is going to be MakerDAO and its DAI product. We're going to do a little bit of an intro, break down exactly what a DAO is, how it functions, how these two tokens play out in the DAI and MakerDAO ecosystem. So for anyone that wants to gain more insight on this, you are in the right spot. We are very interactive with the audience. So wherever you're watching this live stream, if you have a question, feel free to ask. And before we break into it, I'm just going to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, which is Block Relations, public relations, marketing, and technology innovation company. And here's a little promo for them. All right, awesome. We are back at it. So why don't you start us off, Benton, and let's get into the concept of, what exactly is a DAO? What does it even stand
Yeah.
for, right?
Yep. Great question. And this is going to be good just for people that have maybe heard the term DAO, don't know what it is. We're going to give you the rundown and skinny and all this stuff today. DAOs are decentralized autonomous organizations. That's great. That's a big mouthful. What does that mean? This means that it is an organization of community members, developers, people, enthusiasts, whatever you want to look at it, and it is a decentralized, autonomous, meaning automated organization. So it's a self-governing, like kind of engineered way of running an organization. I first found out about MakerDAO, which is one of the biggest DAOs in the ecosystem, just about like a year ago, and this is just like you're unpeeling the layers of an onion. It's a very complex idea, and once you're able to kind of grasp it, you're like, holy smokes, this is going to be what the future looks like. So for me, that's kind of what a DAO is in a nutshell. You have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd say that these DAOs usually come with some sort of governance token. So it gives the users and the ecosystem participants a way to show, their voting rights, a way for them to voice their opinion, right? So you usually see some sort of governance token associated with a DAO. I will reference the example of the Ethereum DAO in 2016 that was hacked, I think, for about 50 million in ETH at the time. That actually caused the fork with Ethereum Classic and Ethereum. So, there's DAOs have a long history, and maybe it's not all positive history. So there are some risks associated with DAO, and typically they involve money being locked in a smart contract. And whenever you have a significant value locked in a smart contract, you're gonna have a variety of bad actors continuously trying to hack into that and exploit these smart contracts. So we just want to keep that in mind when dealing with DAOs. Yes, we believe they could benefit us in the future, but there's always certain security that needs to be taken and risks that needs to be assessed when participating in a DAO ecosystem. So
Exactly.
maybe let's get into what could be the benefits of a DAO over a centralized organization.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's more of an ideology of DAO versus a traditional organization where typically power is concentrated either in a small party or a single member. So that's the way that I view DAOs. Now, the kind of trickle down from that is that the impact that it can have in a financial ecosystem like DeFi, which is where primarily a lot of these DAO projects spawn from. So I think the biggest impact that you're going to see, and what I believe what the future may look like, is that we may start to see DAOs take over our financial system. So instead of having these big conglomerates or kind of centralized custodians, we're going to start seeing these DAOs start to kind of chip away at this old traditional way of running certain industries, whether that starts in finance and kind of trickles over to other things. But that's how I envision it. It's a way to democratize and decentralize power and decision making when it comes to all different kinds of aspects.
Right, you're leveraging the power of the crowd, right? You're not just relying on one centralized organization to make decisions that could impact certain investment decisions. A great example of another DAO is StakerDAO, which for the Tesla's audience that may be watching us here today might be familiar with StakerDAO as well. We could actually probably get into that in a later episode, but They're creating financial assets, and then they also have their own governance token that allows the users who participate in that ecosystem who may have locked up collateral to really have a decision on what these future investment types look like, what kind of synthetic assets are coming out of that organization. So definitely good to know that these DAOs could shift the way traditional finance works and could have a lot more benefits than just regular old central organizations running the show. So, okay, without further ado, let's get into exactly what MakerDAO itself is.
Yeah, and there is a lot to unpackage with this, because I think when I first learned about Maker, it was through the head of smart contracts at the time, Mariano Conti. I was able to speak with him via Crypto Live Leak, and he gave me some great insights and was able to kind of break things down. So within this giant organization that is MakerDAO, there's the foundation side, which has kind of started everything and kind of get the wheels turning on the back end, and then there's the community side, which is now going to kind of start taking over the leadership role of MakerDAO. And it's crazy to see just what actually they're doing. It is a DeFi protocol by nature, but it has spawned so many other projects, whether it comes from gaming to fintech to dApps. All kinds of different things have come from just this one organization. So that's kind of the best way that I can explain it. If you want to elaborate or have any other points there, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I would just say you did a great job explaining it, and I really enjoyed your interview video with Mariano. So if for those of you interested in watching that, you can view that on the Crypto Live Leak YouTube channel. Go back and watch that. Some really great work and insights from Mariano. So in my mind, MakerDAO is the protocol that governs certain assets like the DAI, right?
Mm-hmm.
The DAI. MakerDAO is a project that started, I believe, in 2015, and then we first saw the DAI come about in 2017, which is the crypto collateralized stablecoin. So Maker exists as a protocol to govern this whole ecosystem. So I think that's a great little introduction to what is MakerDAO. But maybe like a little more insight on how does the organizational structure work? Like what kind of players are involved in MakerDAO outside of strictly the holders of the Maker token?
Right. And so there's like the Maker protocol, which is, I guess the best way to describe that's like the market maker, which, and then there's DAI, which is the stable coin, which is kind of the offshoot of the whole protocol itself. DAI, for those of you who are not familiar, is a multi-collateral stable coin, and that's a big difference from many other stable coins like your USDCs and USDTs, which are supposedly backed by the US dollar, but at this point it's like, is there really that supply there to back those up? So the biggest difference when we're talking about multi-collateral stablecoins is it means that not just one asset like the US dollar is backing up this coin, but several different asset classes, and that's all voted on the protocol. So for example, I think just to name a few, it's like ETH. You can have wrapped Bitcoin backing up the protocol for DAI. Like there's all different kinds of other assets that are backing up this actual stable coin. So if it were to fail, there would be actual real assets behind it.
Right, and it's important to note that anyone is free to deposit these assets within the protocol to mint DAI. Right, and there's always going to be a requirement for an over collateralization of these assets that are being deposited because the protocol itself needs to have basically ratios predetermined on when liquidation could be necessary if this collateral starts dropping in price. And this is to essentially guarantee that there's going to be enough value to redeem or the DAI tokens that have been minted that are in circulation. And there are different basically functions that are programmed into the protocol to maintain the stability of the DAI. And if you just take a quick look at the price history of DAI over time, you'll see that it was relatively unstable during maybe the beginning years. But as of recent, I'd say after really May 2020, we've seen it, maintain pretty close to that soft peg to $1. So it's important to know it's a soft peg. This is never going to always equal exactly $1 to one DAI. There's always going to be some fluctuation because you have this constant, reduction and increase in DAI supply to help maintain that peg. And I'm just looking now at the chart here. There have been times, even within 2020, the price of DAI has gone all the way up to, $1.06. And, even earlier in the year, it had fallen down to about 92 cents. So this is something that actually the holders of Maker can help contribute to, right? They can contribute proposals that may make the stabilization process of the DAI more efficient. So that's part of the process of how this protocol maintains the stability of the DAI.
Yeah. And real quick side note, like I was using a bot trading platform earlier this year, and I noticed when I went back through a history of trades, it was trading DAI a lot, and that's because of that little bit of variation between a dollar and maybe it's $1.05 or $1.10 at sometimes, or maybe it's below the dollar. So there is that stability aspect, but it does vary just very slightly, maybe cents and maybe a few cents, but it does vary sometimes.
So basically, you're saying there's an arbitrage opportunity out there. If there's any kind of automated trading going on, someone that could short the DAI or sell the DAI when it goes above $1 and buy it when it goes below $1, something like that, you could easily set up an algorithmic trading bot to reflect those kind of executions. So very interesting stuff. And that would actually help contribute to the stability of the DAI price itself, these arbitrage opportunities.
Exactly.
So getting into it, the DAI itself, we see this being used in a lot of DeFi projects, right? So why is the DAI more favorable to use in a DeFi project than, let's say, USDC or Tether?
In my opinion, it is that multi-collateral aspect. It was originally backed only by ETH, but the protocol has since changed that to make it a multi-collateral asset, which I think is way more valuable than a USDC, which is really a centralized digital currency, as well as USDT. I just, in my opinion, I just think there's something going on there. Whether it means that there's maybe not that actual cash that's backing up that digital asset. So if for some reason people wanted to cash in and transfer all their crypto back to USDT, like there may not actually be that real cash there one day. I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm just saying I get like a feeling that I get more secure with a multi-collateral asset like DAI. With it being backed up by multiple assets.
Now, is there the ability for anyone to audit the collateral that's stored in these vaults, sort of to prove that this value is actually there? Like with Tether, for example, I know they release a statement from some bank in some foreign country, like some Cayman Island bank statement that says, oh yeah, we have a 5 billion locked up in this bank account. And it's signed by, looks like some fake name, right? Like that's something we can't trust. That's why DAI is more advantageous to use, because the value is visible that's locked up as collateral in these vaults.
Exactly.
So it eliminates the need to trust that central party. And that's why we're seeing it more favorable as a use for DeFi products themselves.
Exactly. And just a real quick note to this is that I see DAI as being not just like a world currency. This is a universal currency, and it's very easy for people to understand a 1-to-1 ratio when it comes to crypto. So for me, I think DAI is an excellent on-ramp for learning the basics of crypto. And then I think that will open up the rabbit hole for DeFi for you. But for the general public that's just kind of learning about this stuff, DAI is an excellent place to get started to just learn what is crypto, what is this 1-to-1 ratio? Because I think in everybody's head, no matter where you are in the world, a 1-to-1 ratio makes sense. And the fact that this is what I would consider a more of a real asset than some of the other stable coins out there, like that's value to me. And it can be used not only on this planet. If we really wanted to, once we get up to Mars, we could start, sending DAI back from Earth to Mars. And that's how I see it.
Absolutely. So if you're a new user to the space and you don't want to take the risk of buying Bitcoin or buying some kind of volatile cryptocurrency, you could start by buying a DAI, right? You're going to have this relatively stable price, and you still have the benefits of being able to transact like any other cryptocurrency would in a frictionless environment, right? With no borders or boundaries. So I agree with you. It's a perfect on-ramp for someone to start learning more about cryptocurrency without taking really any risk. So let's get into more of the differentiation between the Maker Foundation and the MakerDAO community? Is it one and the same? How do they interact?
So from what I have seen, and I've spoken to a couple people within their community and foundation, the foundation to me seems like it is more of the development side, and that's kind of where things incepted, and that's where you kind of get this stable base and foundation for everything. Then there's the community side of MakerDAO. And then you have the Maker protocol. So it's this giant like solar system within this community, and the DAO is at the center, and you can consider that as the sun. And outside of those orbits is you're seeing all these other different things like the Maker protocol, the community itself. And a great analogy that was used was everyone's kind of in their own little spaceship working inside of this project or organization, if you will. And sometimes your spaceship will go out of orbit and then back into the orbit, and you're kind of it's very interesting to see because it's very much so like this swarm mentality. It's like, hey, you kind of have your leadership roles within the community, and then you have everybody else who's providing value, and it's just like, hey, here's the idea or the concept that we need to implement and create, and you kind of have the community swarm on this one certain topic or subject to get it completed, and then they move on to the next one. And it's a completely untraditional and unconventional way of conducting business, because I think you and I are both used to a more traditional like world when it comes to a business setting, and this is what I think is going to be the future. Is you're able to pull people from all over the world to work on this project and be able to contribute value to the community and the growth of the DAO, the community, everything itself. So that's kind of what I see from my perspective when it comes to MakerDAO, the community, and the foundation.
Yeah, that's some really great insights. And we're just going to throw the website up here for MakerDAO. That's MakerDAO.com. If you guys are interested in learning more or starting to join some other of these channels, community channels, you can find that information on MakerDAO.com. And I love your reference of MakerDAO being the sun and the community sort of circling around that, being able to come out of orbit and come back in, and sort of you have this decentralized contribution atmosphere that's being created that really brings out the best in the project, right? You're getting all this input and different contributions from people all over the world. It's not just the US, it's not just Europe, it's literally a global contributor effect. And you're able to see the kind of advancements made with all those people contributing. So that's really interesting. So should we at this point share the small presentation that we have, the Maker Protocol 101? Good time for that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think let's jump right into it, man.
Okay. 1 second, let me bring that up on the screen here. So what we're going to do, this presentation can be found off the document site for MakerDAO. So let me just throw that link up here. So this is the Maker Docs website. Really clean, really organized. You can find all the information you want on the inner workings of the Maker protocol. So we're just going to throw up here the first little bit of this presentation. We're only going to focus on the brief overview. We're not going to get too deep into it. We'll rely on you to do that on your own. But first, let's just go through this presentation and see exactly what the problem is here. So the problem that they're solving is instability, right? So the ultimate gauge of capital is denominated in a global currency, which is USD. And they ask the question, well, is Bitcoin stable relative to the global currency USD? And your answer?
No.
Heck no.
Yeah.
Like, this is an asset that fluctuates regularly, 5 to 10% a day, if not more, right? We saw, back in March when the first coronavirus shutdown happened, I think it dropped from over 9,000 in price down to below 4,000. So it had like a single day 60% drop. So it's not stable. So, right, we have to introduce a stable currency, and that's what they've done. Their flagship product. The flagship product is the DAI stablecoin. So again, we've already gone over what DAI is. It is a soft peg to USD. The soft peg means it's not exactly going to be $1 at all times. It's for the basic user to use. It's an ERC20 token, so you can buy DAI off of your favorite decentralized exchange like Uniswap, right, for instance. And the DAI is fully backed by collateral, a multi-collateral basket like you've mentioned earlier, Benton. And this is different than it originally started out as. It's important to note that holders of the Maker token can implement protocol adjustments and proposals such as changing the collateral basket, right? So that's what had happened. And now it's become essentially a less volatile basket of collateral because you have the diversification of assets that are held as collateral.
Yeah. And quick note here is I've heard the one complaint about DAOs, the decentralized autonomous organizations, has been that the governance tokens have been held by a small number of community members. I think it's important to note that when DAOs launch, it is, you can't just flip the switch and say, okay, everything's decentralized. You kind of have to phase in that 100% decentralization. So in order to get the community and the foundation started, you do have to have central decision makers. And let's just say, for example, a smart contract bug pops up, and the community is just not educated enough to be able to say, hey, we need to make this protocol amendment. We need to make this proposal, and we need to have everyone vote on it. You have to be able to have the people with the know-with-all to be able to make some of these proposals and get it going down the right tracks, and then it can head towards a world of 100% decentralization.
That's a great note to make. And, you're always going to have these core development teams involved in products like this in case there are situations where the smart contracts need to be fixed and the greater community needs help or assistance in doing so. So that's a very important note. So in the presentation here, the economics of DAI, how does it keep its pig? So there's a demand curve, and this can shift due to market conditions and confidence of DAI holders. Okay, so the supply curve is shifted through a permissionless credit factory on Ethereum. Any actor can verify the supply of DAI through a maker vault, and the system was built so that these actors are incentivized to shift the supply curve to ensure that the price is as close as possible to $1. Now, I believe this is where the stability fees come into play. So, for instance, it would be, say you're trying to reduce the supply of DAI. Well, if you raise the fee to create a new DAI, you should theoretically create less demand in creating these new DAI and more incentive to actually hold and maintain what is already out there for supply. So it's these sort of tactics and economic tactics that are used to maintain the peg. Mm-hmm. So getting more into the vault itself. So the vault is where the collateral is held. And you'll see here in the example, it is over collateralized. So people borrow DAI through locking up crypto assets for collateral. They can repay the DAI plus a fee to receive their collateral back. So this is maintaining a safe atmosphere of collateral being over collateralized. So if that collateral starts dropping in value, right, there's going to be some ratio that will eventually be triggered to liquidate that collateral and still not go below the value of DAI that has been minted. Getting back into the vault. So what's a good comparison to really understand what this vault is? So they really compare this to a mortgage, right? So when you go out and buy a house, especially if you're buying it today, you're paying, $50,000 above asking price, but that's another problem. So you go out, you buy your house, you have to go get a mortgage from a bank, right? While you're living in the house, you're paying back that bank until the loan is paid off. So they actually own your house until you've paid 100% of that loan. Once you've paid back the loan, well, the house becomes yours, right? You now own the house, and it could have increased in value, let's say, over that time period. So the bank doesn't get to keep that increase in value. You just repay them the loan that you had plus interest, right? Plus stability fee, you can compare that to. And then you get the value of the house or of the collateral that you've locked up originally. Does that comparison make sense to you? I mean,
yeah.
Is that an easy way to explain what these vaults are here?
I think so, because I when you get into DeFi and you start hearing about the terminology vaults, it's it can be confusing. So I think that's probably one of the easiest ways that I've seen that broken down to better make it, digestible and apply it to more of a real world use case. So yeah, definitely.
Okay, so now let's get a little bit into the liquidations of a vault. So the vault is automatically liquidated if the collateral value in USD falls too low. So there's a ratio, a predetermined ratio that's set. And this is automatically done. So these are smart contracts that are pre-programmed to auction off the liquidity if it hits this ratio. So part of the collateral is auctioned off by the protocol to cover the outstanding debt plus penalty fee. So it doesn't wait until it gets to an equal value of the DAI. It wants to make sure it can really maintain the value of what's been issued plus a fee, a penalty fee, right? So DAI would then be burned by the protocol to decrease the supply, and the vault owner would receive the leftover collateral. So this is obviously a situation when the price of the collateralized assets goes up. You won't see this situation happen. But in a market downturn where, say, the price of ETH or the price of wrapped Bitcoin falls drastically, you might see these vaults have to liquidate. And it's important to note that there is also a penalty fee associated with this liquidation.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a system interaction diagram. I know you've already touched on a little bit of all the sort of players that interact with the ecosystem. But again, we can touch on it here. So you have the maintainers of the Maker protocol, the developers, the oracles, and the keepers. You have the governors of the platform, which is the MKR, the Maker token holders, and the risk team. And then you have the users, which could be the DAI holder or the vault owner. Okay. How do these actors interact? Well, the DAI holders, they don't need to have much knowledge of the system. All they need to do is, go out there and hold DAI, right? You can buy it in a secondary market. These are people that are probably stability seekers, maybe consumers, could even be businesses, right? If I'm a business and I want to accept cryptocurrency, I could accept Bitcoin, but what am I doing if I'm holding that as an asset? I'm kind of speculating, right? So maybe I want to accept something that I'm confident in will be a stable asset, and I just want, to onboard people into cryptocurrency. So I want to accept DAI, right? I'm going to do that more likely than accepting Tether.
Right. And yeah, I see the application of DAI happening way faster in a business environment than a Bitcoin, because I feel like it's almost like, walk into a store and be like, hey, can I pay for this in gold? Like, it's like I'd rather pay for DAI, like using DAI, than actually using like an asset. Like I view Bitcoin as like a long-term asset. So it's like you'd rather have something that's more frictionless and more of that dollar idea than to be able to kind of do like a Bitcoin. So I see what you're saying there.
Right, and we're talking more about like the average person who may not know much about cryptocurrency to begin with, right? So how can we appeal to them? How can we appeal to the regular business person or the regular settlements department of a bank, right? Like they can understand a 1-to-1 ratio with a dollar, right? You're still not deviating. Okay. So next we have the vault owner, which they must require some intermediate knowledge of the situation. These are probably people that are more apt to take on risk, speculators, and borrowers. Have you encountered anyone that is an actual vault owner in this ecosystem at this point?
I haven't, and this is where my knowledge just does not go deep enough. Is that I love DeFi, and I feel like I'm learning something new every day, and I think Vault is the next subject matter I would want to dive deep into to have a better understanding of who's involved and how that all works.
Yeah, and maybe we can tee that up for another episode, because this is supposed to be intro and high level, just introductory to the ecosystem here. So tee that up for another episode. We'll dive deeper into these vaults and show how they actually work. On the governance side of things, you have, of course, the maker holder. These people are a little more advanced, more extensive knowledge. They're going to monitor, partake, and vote on upgrades and changes of the maker protocol. So they might have to submit some sort of smart contract with the proposed upgrade to the protocol that they're trying to get across here, that would go to vote from the other maker holders. You also have this risk team, which is probably the most advanced participant in the ecosystem, where they collect and compile relevant data, develop risk modules, and asserted it by the maker holder. So the risk team, do you know if anyone on the risk team, or do you know if the risk team themselves is capable of making protocol upgrades or proposals?
Yeah, I don't know how that works. That's another good question. I just, like I said, this MakerDAO is like such a gigantic, enormous like organization. There is like a million different kind of like, it feels like different areas that they cover, and the risk team is one that I have not had a chance to speak with or even have any kind of involvement with yet.
So here's some more actors in the system here. So you have maintainers. So we mentioned the developers earlier, right? So uh, these are people that are sort of maintaining the protocol in the beginning, right? This is the development team that may have set up all the smart contracts to begin with. You also have oracles, so it's very important to note, how does a smart contract know what the price of its collateral that it's holding is, right? So this is where the oracle comes into play. Oracles could be something like Chainlink, where it takes real world data and puts it onto the blockchain. So this is actually a friction point and a security risk point, where bad actors might try to take control of the Oracle price feed and feed bad prices in. So maybe the vaults get liquidated, right? They might have different reasons on why they want to do that. Maybe they hold the collateral in the vault themselves, or they somehow deem to benefit off this liquidation. So it's definitely an area of risk, but there's also opportunity there if you yourself become a trusted Oracle provider. And then you also have keepers as well. So system lines of defense, right? So what happens? How can the system defend itself against collateral going down in price, or how can it defend itself to make this DAI stable, right? So at any point, the system must have more value in collateral than the value of DAI supply. So the following mechanisms help maintain system solvency. So supply and demand of vaults and thus DAI is influenced by stability fees, the savings rate, and the debt ceiling adjustments. You have liquidation, which at any time the collateral of the vault gets closer to its debt, it becomes riskier, and the system can liquidate that vault if it gets too risky. Some more lines of defense here. We have the minting and burning. So if maker holders govern the maker protocol successfully, the protocol will accrue surplus DAI as DAI holders pay these stability fees, which we mentioned earlier. On the other hand, if liquidators are inadequate, then the protocol will accrue bad debt. So we all know what bad debt can be, right? So if you're a bank, you know what bad debt is. You don't want that. Can't be repaid, right? So once this surplus DAI bad debt amount hits a threshold, as voted on by maker holders, so the maker holders are determining this threshold, the protocol will discharge surplus DAI bad debt through the flopper smart contracts by buying, burning, minting, and selling maker respectively. So it's able to use maker as another minting and burning line of defense to help ensure the holistic nature of the ecosystem here. And then, of course, you have this last point, which is an emergency shutdown. So this is a process used as a last resort in case of extreme market irrationality, attacks, or coordination upgrades. Emergency shutdown gracefully settles the maker platform while ensuring that all users, both DAI holders and vault users, receive the net value of assets they are entitled to. So this is the fail-safe, the final, break glass in case of emergency line of defense that MakerDAO has in order to ensure everyone is entitled to the value of assets that they have deposited or that they own.
Like the circuit breaker for stock market. Once it drops in a certain value, that circuit breaker cuts, trading shuts down.
Exactly. Yeah, you often see the circuit breaker happen. I think it is for an individual stock, 10% movement. I don't know if it's within a day or within a certain time frame, but you'll see stocks or even entire markets shut down if a movement occurs too fast. So yeah, this is kind of what this is here, this circuit breaker effect. So cool, guys. I didn't want to go too deep into this with the audience today. It was meant to be just an introductory show here, just to demonstrate to the audience what MakerDAO is, what DAI is, why you should trust DAI as your preferred stablecoin of choice, how it is crypto collateralized and over collateralized. But of course, there are a variety of different options out there for stablecoins, and we hope to keep bringing you the information to get you guys up to date and ready to participate fully in the ecosystems that we talk of. So I think that was great. Benton, I'm really happy that you're able to come on here. I know you're super passionate about Maker and DAI, so I want to give you some time here to say anything you want about the project.
I just absolutely love that community. Everyone I've spoken to and interacted with has been so open to just talking about everything they have going on and what they're working on, and it's just one giant collaborative community, and I think they're really making an impact on the world in our future. So I'm excited to see what's the next moves for Maker and the entire organization that falls underneath that umbrella.
Well said, brother. I couldn't have put it better myself. So, guys, audience, make sure you're following Crypto Live Leak on YouTube. Make sure you're following us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. We're on all the socials. Hit the like button on this video. Feel free to share it around. And we didn't get any questions today. What's going on, audience? We know some of you were watching. Don't be afraid to ask questions. But you know what? We'll be here tomorrow, guys. I hope you enjoyed. For Benton, I'm Ken. Until next time, guys, take care.